going on YouTube? Smolder here, and we're back at it again with another tier list. This time, it is ranking all of the Dark Souls 3 bosses. Which, if you guys watched my tier list of all my Souls games, the games themselves, I rank Dark Souls 3 as the best Dark Souls. So, I figured, okay, this is my favorite Dark Souls. Might as well go ahead and do all the bosses. I'll probably do a Dark Souls 2 and a Dark Souls 1 and a Demon Souls boss tier list video. Thought about doing a full compilation tier list, but I'm like, you know what? I make more videos. It helps the algorithm and all that kind of shit. So why not? Okay. Plus, it would be an extremely long video, and I want to try to shy away from doing like hour-long videos. Anyways, it's been a while since I played Dark Souls 3. I played it many times when it came out. Then the DLC came out. Played through the DLC probably like 4 or 5 times. And then I haven't touched the game probably in like, I don't know what, like 4 years or something at least. So I'm kind of going off of memory here, but at the same time, that kind of probably means the more memorable the fight was, the better it is. The less memorable it is, the more I don't like it. But I like to think I generally have a pretty good memory. So I'm just going to go in order from what they have here rather than trying to do the whole thing by order. You know what? Let's see if I can do it in order. Indux Gundyr, right? This is the first boss in the game. Tutorial boss. Let's go. I actually think he is one of the best tutorial bosses out of all of the FromSoft games. I'm going to put him at a B, though. I'm going to put him at a B. Probably high B tier. I think he's great because he has a phase 2. I remember when I first played Dark Souls 3, I'm just like, dude, this dude is tough. Because not only that, he's tough, but you're actually meant to beat him, unlike the Asylum Demon or whatever from the other games. You're actually meant to beat this guy. So I was like, oh crap, this dude's insane. And then the transformation's really cool too, and then it kind of like bleeds into some other mobs later throughout the game, so that's really cool. I think it's a really good fight to get the player ready for what's to come. You know, and it holds up as honestly just a good fight. But yeah, that's how I feel on that. Boss number 2, I believe, is Vort of the Boreal Valley. Sorry, Vort, you are too basic. He's like a dog, watchdog type dealio. He's a C tier. He's mid tier. Because I think, my personal opinion, he looks kind of cool. Aesthetically, he's a pretty dope looking boss. And if you've watched any of my other videos, I'm just kind of biased towards anything frost, snow, ice related. That it instantly gets brownie points from me. For no other reason other than just I just want to. But I do think the fight's pretty generic. It's pretty subpar, if we're being honest. But I like that he's actually not overly large. So you don't have to really... The camera works pretty good. So, you know, I think it's pretty decent in that regard. But his moveset's pretty simple. You know, nothing really much to the boss. Now, if I'm trying to remember who's next, I want to say it was the Crystal Sage, but I don't know where the hell he is on this list. So I'm just going to put the Crystal Sage. I actually don't remember if he's next, but also C tier. And this was a boss that in some playthroughs, I hated this boss. In some playthroughs, I thought the boss was dumb. In some playthroughs, I was like, man, this boss is actually kind of cool. It's one of the bosses that makes all the, it mimics itself. It has, you have to find the clones and all this nonsense and start shooting things. It teleports or whatever, appears all over the battle arena and shoots you with spells. Normally, I don't like these kind of fights. However, the HP of the boss is extremely low. And if you get lucky, it can be a very quick fight. But there's not really a lot of ads per se. It's just that it can clone itself a lot. So it's like there's fake ones and whatnot. But it's a caster. And I actually think the spells that it casts are fair. You know, aesthetically, there's nothing to the boss. I think it's a very generic looking boss. The arena is very generic looking. It's whatever. You know, there's nothing cool about it either. And I'm gonna be honest, when it comes to all these bosses, I don't remember the music at all. So, you know, but yeah, I think it's middle of the road, but not even as cool as the previous boss. Okay, who's next on the list? I'm trying to see here. I believe you can kind of go multiple routes. I'm looking at the list here. I want to say the next fight is it Deacons? Let's just do Deacons just to get him out of the way. It's trash. And it's probably going to be the only fight that I put in the trash tier. Some people might like it because, you know, you're just fighting a mob and whatever. I'm like, for me, I look at it like this. There's a boss fight that's very similar to this in Dark Souls 2 as well. But it's just a bunch of mobs, and then you got to find the right one. It either has glowing eyes or there's something that lets you know. I could be wrong about that. Let me know down in the comments below. It's been, like I said, it's been like 4 years since I played the game. There's an indicator so you know which one's the real one. You got to hit and do damage and whatnot. But otherwise, it's just a bunch of schmucks in the arena. And if you're too slow, yeah, some other nasty crap happens and whatnot. But I think it's stupid. That's just me. I think this fight is dog shit. But that's just me. If you like it, let me know. Tell me I'm trash, and tell me that you think this fight's S tier or whatever. There ain't nobody's gonna say this fight's S tier, but you know, maybe you think it's B tier, whatever. Yeah, I wanted to say the next boss was like Abyss Watchers or something. I'm just gonna do it. Abyss Watchers is S tier, man. It's an S tier fight. I feel like a lot of people would probably agree with me on this. I really, really enjoyed it. I think this fight is... You might be like, oh, but smaller. What about, you know, this fight's got ads and whatnot? Yeah, but it's a little different, right? It's not like a typical fight with just ads. This fight's unique. And in that sense. And the moveset's cool. It's a humanoid fight. And I think those are generally the best. It's got a really cool moveset, especially when you're fighting the final one. He's, you know, more empowered, whatnot with the... Wait, he does like the fire stuff too, right? I think it's cool. And then, of course, you get the best looking gear in the game, or one of the best looking gears in the game, right? Fashion Souls up the ass, dude. It's fantastic. I think this fight is truly S tier. One of the best fights, or best bosses that they've made in any of the games. Period. Okay, I'm getting kind of lost in terms of the order here. There's a few that I know were like not going to be next because they're the DLC bites or whatever. I'm going to also put Ancient Wyvern in the trash tier because this isn't a boss. Why is it on here? You literally just jump on him and he dies, okay? He's not a boss fight, so it's going in the trash tier. Let's do Aldrich. I think Aldrich is a solid B. Some people might disagree with me. I think visually Aldrich is actually really, really cool. What if it was just purely to visuals and everything, I would probably put him like high A tier. But we're talking about like his moveset and everything. I mean, he's a boss that has a lot of things that make the player just run around. And I'm not a fan of that. Like, okay, he's doing the brain of arrows. Okay, just run. Run. He does the other homing things or whatever. I think you can dodge those. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure I used to like run and hide behind the pillars because they would break on the pillars. I think phase 2 maybe you can break the pillars, but then he also teleports, goes under the ground and then he comes back up or whatever. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of his moveset, and then the fact that you have to run around. I like bosses that. And fights in general in the games where it's just constantly like, okay, maybe I have to dodge this move, but then I attack. Dodge, attack. A lot of back and forth between the player and the boss or the enemy that you're fighting. And like I said, I'm not a huge fan of just run away. Okay, now run back. Run away. Run back. Don't like that. He's obviously not like the worst out of by any means of any boss. I'm still putting him in B tier, which means he's above average for me. He's an above average fight. But comparing it to a lot of other bosses that's going to be on this list, it's much better. So like I said, I don't remember the order of a lot of these things. I'm going to do High Lord Wolnir. This is a gimmick fight, in my opinion. And this gimmick fight is actually B tier. Because the visual and the feeling that the player has, I think is really, really good. That all being said, I'm biased against gimmick fights. I mean, he's not really a gimmick fight, I guess. It's just that you have to beat the dude in, kind of in a certain amount of time, right? If I'm remembering it right, you have to break the bracelets and whatnot, and that's what does damage and whatnot. If you're too slow, the fog basically kills you because it keeps pushing you towards the wall, and then you just die. I don't know. It's not a real boss fight, but in terms of the aesthetic of the fight, I think it's very, very cool. I very much like it. So that's just me. I like that aspect of it. Okay. I also just remembered there was another boss that I just missed that's very early. I believe it's actually the boss directly after Vort, which is the Cursed Rotted Greatwood. This guy is a C tier. I'm going to put him above the Crystal Sage, though. Because the Phase 2 is better. But he's pretty generic. You're just fighting a big-ass tree. A treant, whatever. If I'm remembering it right. And then Phase 2, right? The ground breaks and then you drop down. I guess it's a little more than that, too, right? Because then you have to, like, burst the pus bubbles on him or whatever. That's totally not what that is. I'm just calling him that. On the body, and that's what does the damage. Is a pretty generic, fighting like a giant or something similar to that. But it's fine. I don't remember really having too many camera issues, though, even though it's a large boss. So that's always good. Anytime they create a large boss that there's not a lot of camera issues, big plus. That all being said, he's going to stay in the C tier because I don't think it's really aesthetically that cool. To me, just trees or whatever, Hey, if you guys like it, let me know where you'd rank the tree. I think he's middle of the road. He's average. Not bad, not great. Just, it's all right. Now back to where we were. What is the champion grave tender? I'm going to leave that for later because that sounds like it was a DLC thing. Let's go ahead and do... I want to say it's the champion Gundyr now. But let's do the Old Demon King. Old Demon King... This is tough, man. Because his moves are cool, but he looks stupid. I'm going to put him in B. But I'm going to put him low B. For whatever reason, he's kind of a small boss for like being like a demon king at that. But he has a lot of cool moves. His moves, I think, are really cool. Granted, he does have like a move that makes you run away and all that, but they at least look flashy and cool. I don't know, I said that about Aldrich too, but I'm obviously ranking him lower than Aldrich. But I don't know, the arenas, whatever. I'm not a big fan of just fire. But the moves were still pretty cool and all of that. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm putting him. Low B. He's a little bit above average fight. Wish he looked cooler. Let's do the champion Gundyr. So this guy, he's my first A tier fight. He's essentially just a souped up version of the tutorial boss. Which the tutorial boss, as I already stated, is an incredible tutorial boss. But I do think this one takes the cake. And I'm hoping I actually have them in the right order because I could be wrong. Maybe champion was the tutorial and the Udex is the better version. I don't remember. All I know is one is one and one is the other. The force is one and the force is with me. Okay, whatever. Rug one. Yeah, really cool. As I said, moveset's sick. I like it. I like the transformation stuff. I think it's an absolutely fantastic fight. And beating this guy leads you to the game's hub, but not the hub, which all the Souls games seem to really do, where you can find your hub world in the game world somewhere, but it's different. And then this is where you end up getting what I think actually is the best looking armor in the game. So that's just me. Man, I'm gonna have to play Dark Souls 3 again. I need to play that mod. Let me know what the name of that mod is. It's like Reforged or something. Everyone says it's like S tier mod. Everyone needs to play. Anyways, next boss fight, I believe, is probably Yhorm. So this is another gimmick fight. Not a huge fan of the gimmicks, but I do think he's better than the Crystal Sage. Because Yhorm at least looks like a badass. Yeah, because you're supposed to kill all the the lords of Cinder, duh. And Yhorm is one, right? If I remember, it's like Yhorm, Aldrich, Abyss Watchers. Then you're gonna have the twin princes and whatnot. Anyway, yeah, he's a giant with a giant ass cleaver. You run in the back of the arena, then you get the gimmick weapon to be able to do the uber damages. I had a friend of mine who, the first time he played through the game, beat Yhorm without the weapon. And he was like, this fight's taking so long. But, yeah, found out later. I was like, come on, man. Anyways, next fight. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. If I remember, Pontiff Sullivan would have been before Aldrich, because Pontiff Sullivan opens up Anor Londo to then go fight Aldrich. I think he's the boss right before Aldrich. Pontiff Sullivan's S tier. He's S tier. He looks sick. His moves are sick. He's just sick. And he's quite challenging. Again, another humanoid type monster or boss with swords and whatnot. It just looks like Rolana, eat your heart out, dude. Here's your grandfather. Let's go. Pretty much. This dude is dope. So I was thinking, I'm like, okay, because then I think Boreal Dancer is coming up next. So I'm putting Boreal Dancer as A tier, but it's top A tier. It's really close to put him to S tier, but I just don't think I can because there's going to be a couple other fights that are on this list that are S tier as well. But I might still put below Pontiff Sullivan. I think Abyss Watch is still better. But the Dancer is really cool, but here's the problem that I've always had with the Dancer is that it's not the moves per se, but it's the body movement of the enemy is very misleading with a lot of the attacks. And I'm sure that's by design, of course. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty damn good fight. Fighting any enemy that has like weapons is generally going to be a cool fight because you can kind of like gauge them, like, all right, let's go back and forth, let's do this, let's go, kind of thing. But I remember a lot of people saying back in the day that this fight was too hard. I'm like, it wasn't that hard. I mean, it was challenging, but I'm like, that's what we play these games for. Or challenging, methodical challenging fights that we learn over time and then we execute. And then once we finally get it, we're like, yes! Right? That's generally what we play these games for. Or for a lot of it. Next on the list, I'm going to do the Dragon Slayer armor. So this fight can be cool. But if it's getting to the point where it's cool, you probably screwed up. So I'm putting it high S tier. So the first few times that I played through the game, I wasn't even aware of a certain element of the fight. I just thought you're just fighting this humanoid dude in armor, and that was that. That was the fight. And then I realized, not really. There's that other thing. I mean, you attack this thing, right? But there's the other thing. And that does make the fight a little bit more interesting and intriguing to me. But otherwise, I don't know. There's nothing special about this guy. He basically felt like, to me, just like a unique elite mob. That's just kind of how he comes across. I love the weapon. I'm not gonna knock that. I like his weapon to get as a player. But otherwise, I think he's just, average. But he is the boss that leads up to Twin Princes, which I think is also an A-tier fight. A lot of people have done comparisons with the Radahn fight with Mikola and the Twin Princes. I do think there can be said a lot of similarities. I think the Twin Princes is a far superior fight in terms of mechanics. The only thing I think the Radahn fight has over it is the scale and scope and the grandioseness of the fight. But this fight's still pretty epic. Phase 1, but phase 2, once the younger prince starts getting involved and the dude starts teleporting and shooting laser beams and all that, I think it's cool. And unlike the Radahn fight, all that stuff does not get cluttered on the screen to make it look like it's just flashing lights all over the place. You're looking through a kaleidoscope or something. So I think it's a really cool fight. The run back isn't terrible. You're just running up the stairs, basically. Whatever. And yeah, visually the boss itself, there's nothing really to it. But everything else about the fight, his moveset and the spells that happen and whatnot, I think is really cool. So I really enjoy the fight. It's moderately challenging, but not overly challenging. Okay. Next I'm going to do Osiris the Consumed King. I think this is another... Well, I'm going to put him low B. I'm going to actually put him above the old Demon King. This fight's interesting because this is a fight that has a lot of dialogue. Like, the dude keeps talking. It's interesting. And in the base game of Dark Souls 3, this is like the only dragon in the game, right? Well, I guess you have the Ancient Wyvern. Okay, whatever. But I think a lot of it's because, like the dragons are died out or something. So, lore-wise, let me know. Tell me in the lore why there was really no dragons. I'm thinking because they're all gone, right? Because Dark Souls 1 had, like, the last of the dragons, really. I'm probably way off. I'm just making shit up. But I think he's okay. He's cool. I do like fights that have, like, lore implications in the fight and things or dialogue is being said in the fight. His moveset's all right. There's, like, some weird crystal build-up affliction thing, I believe, in the fight. So, okay, that's something you have to worry about. But I didn't think the fight's overly difficult. But, it was fine. It was a fine fight. And it has that little added extra lore stuff in the fight that bumps it up for me from a C to a B. Okay. Next is the base game's best fight. And that is the Nameless King. This dude is the ultimate badass. He's got one of the coolest entrances. You're ending up on this, you're walking in the cloud sky, and in comes this badass flying on like a drake or a dragon or whatever. He's flying, swooping in, and he's like, he just looks like a badass. Basically. It's a two-phase fight. You're fighting the drake first, and then you're fighting him afterwards. Or you're fighting him right in the drake, then you're fighting him directly afterwards. It's a challenging fight. It's probably, I would say, the hardest fight in the base game. That's probably fair to say. But the visual aesthetic, the implications of, he's the final fight of, I don't know, you could say it's the final zone of the base game or not. I think it's supposed to be. It's sick. It's just sick. He's pretty dope. Oh, I think I do remember what this this champion grave tender is now. So I'm gonna do it. Its first DLC, if I recall correctly. Let's go ahead and do the Soul of Cinder. So the Soul of Cinder is the technical final boss of the base game, because that's once you beat him, then you go to New Game Plus. I'm putting him top of the A tier list. Okay. And there's only one thing that's keeping me from putting him into S tier, and that's because of RNG. I like him because you're essentially fighting Gwen. It's got very similar music. The way the fight begins is very similar to fighting Gwen. He always starts with the Gwen sword and everything like that. It's Gwen's moveset. But then he transitions to other weapons. And they're all cool. They're all really, really cool and engaging fights. They're challenging. It's a challenging fight. But what I don't like is that it's RNG based on the weapons he's going to pull out and which ones movesets he's going to do. And I don't know, man. Hell, maybe I'm just totally forgetting. Does he only do the sword and spear? Shit. I don't remember, dudes. Okay, hold on. Dark Souls 3, Soul of Cinder. We're doing this in a video, and I'm not going to edit it out, because I feel like I'm talking out of my ass now. Use the sword, then sorcery, then pike, and then curved sword. Okay. So I seem to remember he always just kind of... See, that's what I thought he had multiple things. Okay, so he does all four. Okay. It says during phase 1, Soul of Cinder will alternate through four various movesets during the fight. His first moveset consists of Soul, Crystal Soul Spear, and the third moveset, Pyromancy. Okay, so during phase 1... Okay. See, this is what I thought. Okay. I'm not talking out of my ass. He does use 4 different things, or essentially. Sorry for the tangent, but again, that is why I feel that way. But otherwise, I think it's cool. I do like the boss that he does alternate between different movesets. I just wish it was a little more, because of the tactical nature of fighting Souls bosses, and kind of like a huge whole, metagame of the system, is to fight the boss, learn a bit about the boss, die, fight the boss, can learn a little more, get better, things like that, until you beat the boss, because then you've gotten down what the boss does. I wish it would have been a little bit more predictable in the order, but still top A tier fight. Okay. Next, we're going to do the Champion Grave Tender. I'm pretty sure this is the first boss of the DLC. Pretty sure of the Ashes of Ariandel. You can be my first D tier fight. I'm actually going to put another boss in D as well. If it's the boss that I'm remembering, because it's not a mini boss, he's outside, like underneath. It's just a giant ass wolf, right? You're not Sif. I don't give a shit. All right. This is going to be controversial. Sister Frida is an S tier fight. Fight me. I know people who absolutely despise this fight, who think this fight is absolute trash and ass. I know some people think it's it's pretty good, that would put it maybe like a B, high B, kind of thing. But I know a lot of people who think this fight is one of the worst fights in all of Dark Souls. I love this fight. Maybe it's because you can summon Gale for the fight. Maybe it's because it's not only a 3-phase fight. It's a 3-phase fight, but you start off fighting Sister Frida alone. You know, she's got the invisibility bullshit, but it's not really bad. I don't know. They do it in a way that actually is nice, and it's not super annoying. At least I didn't find it annoying at all. But then you also fight, was it her father? I don't know. The dude with the fucking, you know, fire and, you know, whatever. You got that, you know. I'm trying to remember, is phase 3 like fighting both at the same time, or was it something else happens? I think she gets empowered and she gets a new moveset, right? I believe is what happens. I obviously haven't played through the DLCs as much as I've played through the base game. So I'm trying to remember. But exactly. But I loved it. I love the fight because I think Sister Friede is one of the most badass, you know, things there is in all of the Souls games. I don't know. She's incredibly challenging as a boss, but I think the reward of being able to master through her fight and execute things well enough to get through all 3 phases, chef's kiss. Fantastic. Still put below the Nameless King because it doesn't have that. The Nameless King is just a badass, right? So that's why he's still kind of up there, because he's just like walking like a pimp, dude. He's just like coming in like he's the shit, because he is. The Sister Friede fight does not have... I've probably said her name like 5 different times now in 5 different ways. It's not visually as badass or as cool on the aesthetic level, but a lot of the other stuff, everything else is pretty much just absolutely incredible. Now, the Ring City DLC stuff. First boss fight you're going to fight is the Demon Prince, I believe, because that's how you actually enter. I can't remember if he actually is part of the DLC or if he was base game pre-DLC. I don't know. Something like that. It's a B tier fight. It's better than average, but I'm just trying to think of where I want to put him. I think I'm going to put him here above High Lord Wolner. Wolner, like, again, Wolner gets high because the aesthetic and atmosphere of the fight is just really, really rad to me. I love it that much that he actually goes that high. Demon Prince is, you know, it's a very large arena. The arena is very, very large. It's not that memorable, but it's not that difficult, but it wasn't terrible. So that's why I'm kind of putting him into B. He's the gatekeeper to the Ring City. Yeah, no. We'll put him here. That's just kind of where it goes from now. All right, here's my other D tier fight. Half-Light Spirit of the Church. And it's D tier because I don't like fights like this. It's a PvP fight. You could be, if you're playing online, you're gonna summon in another player to be your boss. I mean, they have a moveset, and they're playing a particular character, but it could be another player playing them. Some people are gonna say that's why this fight is amazing and why it's an S tier fight. I think it's bullshit. It's stupid, and I don't like it. So every time that I had come to get to this fight, I actually turned the game offline mode to fight the fight to ensure that I don't fight another player. So that's gotta be pretty bad, right? But yeah. We have 2 bosses left, guys. The 2 hardest bosses in all of Dark Souls 3. I'm going to do Dark Eden Midir first. Dark Eden Midir is A tier. I'm putting him right here. I'm putting him right behind the Dancer. He is one of their best dragons they have ever made. Arguably the best one they ever have made pre-Bale. But the fight, it's not as good as Bale. Like, not even close. He's got a lot of bullshit moves. But he has some movesets that's very similar from the amygdala from Bloodborne, if I recall. Like the laser beams that he shoots the lasers and then the after delayed explosions. But he's still a typical like dragon in the sense of like, you know, gotta hit the hind legs. Let's go. Let's slash the feet. I remember watching some videos though of people perfecting this fight of facing him to the face and being able to beat him in like seconds. I was like, all right, I see what you got there. I ain't that good. So I can't fight him that way. It's a very, very difficult fight. In my opinion, Dark Eater Madir was the most difficult fight in all of Dark Souls 3 for me. But again, I haven't played in a while, so when I play through this game again, I might change my tune a little bit. But next is, in my opinion, the best fight in Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls 3. And it is the culmination of all three games. The story finally ends. Fighting Slave Knight Gale. Two absolute nobodies from nothing is the ultimate fight. Because the fool consumes the Dark Soul. But he is such a badass, dude. Oh my god. Slave Knight Gale is not only difficult. Like I said, I personally have always had a much more difficult time with Dark Eater Madir. But he is a very challenging fight. But he's a fair fight. Like, right? He's a humanoid fight. His phases, he has multiple phases. He has a multiple arsenal range. He's got range. He's got close range. He's fast. He's got, if I recall, he can heal a little bit. He's got some AoE shit with the spirit thingamajiggies. His cloak is like a weapon. He's got, like I said, he's got the repeating crossbow thing. Dude, Gale is sick. Like I said. And not only that, with Dark Souls 3, they did such an incredible job of making the final fight the best fight. Which is why, like, the more and more and more that I think about the games, I used to put Dark Souls 1 as my favorite Dark Souls. The more and more and more I think about the games, I go back, revisit the games, Dark Souls 3 is just superior. And it's so good. Dark Souls 3, the culmination of everything that gets led up to, right? Like I said, with the Nameless King as well, you know, being one of the final bosses of the base game. Now you got Slave Knight Gale. It's just top quality from software. Miyazaki being the GOAT. I don't know if they, no. It's hard to say because I also think Slave Knight Gale is basically the same how I feel with Ishin. I did a Sekiro boss tier list as well. And Ishin is my highest ranked boss as well. And that's the final fight. They're just on a roll, man. In my opinion, that's one of the things they failed in Elden Ring. The final fights in Elden Ring are not the greatest, in my opinion. They're much better bosses. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching my Dark Souls 3 boss tier list. Let me know how much you disagree, how much you agree, comments, how you would rank the bosses and all of that. If you like this video, please like the video. Please subscribe. All this stuff helps the algorithm, and I want to keep putting out more videos. In the future, I'm going to obviously do stuff with Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 1, Demon Souls, all of the FromSoft games, as well as some of the other Souls-likes that I've played. And I might be delving into doing some other tier lists as well that's not Souls-likes. Anyways, keep an eye out, and thank you for watching.